Everyone calls the Jedi the good guys. Their flowing robes, elegant lightsabers, and the serene wisdom from their council chambers paint them as paragons of virtue, galactic peacekeepers, and the light against darkness. Or so we've been told. And have you really looked at them? Have you noticed they're essentially a religious cult with exceptional PR? They preach peace and balance, yet demand absolute obedience. They speak of compassion, but enforce a strict code that often seems to stifle with the very essence of what it means to be alive, to be human, or in their case, sentient. This isn't just about a galaxy far, far away. Because when goodness is defined by obedience to a system rather than empathy for the people, the so-called good guys become dangerous. And once you notice that pattern in fiction, you start seeing it everywhere. Hi, I'm Cholomal, and welcome to the very first episode of Devil's Midnight Thesis. This is where I delve deep, sometimes too deep, if you ask my therapist, into pop culture references and all that gloriously nerdy stuff we consume just before the devil's hour. You know, when your brain is half asleep and the filter is definitely off. But we're not just here to gush about our favorite fandoms. We're here to use those very stories, those vivid worlds we escape into as a lens to examine deeper, often uncomfortable truths about our own reality. Pop culture isn't just entertainment. It's a mirror. And sometimes, that mirror shows us reflections we'd rather ignore. Have you ever wondered why in certain films, TV shows, or even in the seemingly straightforward narratives of real life, the supposed good guys are either openly detested,
Jedi scum,
deeply distrusted, or at the very least, viewed with a healthy dose of skepticism? It's not just their air of sanctimonious superiority, though that certainly doesn't help. It's often the profound lack of genuine empathy or compassionate flexibility you'd expect from those who claim to be on the side of good. The rigid adherence to rules, the cold logic, the unwavering certainty that their way is the only way.
this is the way.
Let's take the Jedi as our prime examples. For centuries, they were the revered guardians, entrusted with peacekeeping throughout the sprawling, chaotic galaxy. Yet despite their omnipresent influence and seemingly benevolent intentions, terrible things still happened to the very people they were sworn to protect. The galaxy groaned under the weight of slavery.
I can't believe there's still slavery in the galaxy. The Republic's anti-slavery laws
The
are...
Republic doesn't exist out here.
Entire species faced genocide and endless wars raged. Not because the Jedi were evil, but because they were obedient. They aligned themselves with the Republic, enforcing a system that was already corrupt, bureaucratic, and indifferent to suffering. Their goodness became defined not by outcomes, but by loyalty. This is what it looks like when morality is outsourced to an institution. We see this unsettling dynamic laid bare in Tales of the Jedi. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this fantastic series, Dooku and Mace Windu are sent to recover the body of a fallen Jedi Master. Dooku senses something is wrong, a deeper injustice at play. He wants to investigate, but Windu doesn't, because the mission wasn't to find the truth. It was to follow orders. Of course, as Dooku suspected, it turns out it was a whole insidious conspiracy, and Dooku, with his disobedient instincts, was absolutely right to investigate. The conspiracy? The senator of the planet was ruthlessly exploiting the resources of the very world they governed for their own immense personal benefit. All the while, this two-faced leader was cynically pretending to be the victim, and their supposed aggressors were in fact nothing more than indigenous people of the planet, desperately trying to protect their home and their way of life. Lo and behold, what happens to our two protagonists? The rule follower and the questioner. Well, Mace Windu was rewarded with a coveted seat on the esteemed Jedi Council, cementing his place in the hierarchy. Let's look at the different journeys of our two main characters. One who plays by the rules, and one who's always asking questions. Take Mace Windu, for example. He stuck to the rules and ended up earning a ton of respect and a spot on the Jedi Council, solidifying his position within the system. Dooku, however, was snubbed. His justified actions branded as disobeying orders black mark on his record despite being morally correct. The system didn't reward justice, it rewarded compliance. This is a recurring theme throughout Star Wars. There is a reason why the Jedi were defeated with such relative ease. Not because the enemy was stronger, but because of the slow erosion of their own values. Over time, these principles became so diluted that they were nothing more than a fragile house of cards, ready to collapse at the slightest pressure.
All it takes is a little push.
This pattern doesn't just disappear, it escalates. In Good Omens, heaven itself is revealed to be indifferent to humanity's suffering. The great plan must be fulfilled, regardless of who dies.
What's all this about? Build a big boat and fill it with a travelling zoo.
From what I hear, God's a bit tetchy. Wiping out the human race. Big storm.
Not the kids. You can't kill kids.
The Almighty's going to put up a new thing called a rainbow.
How kind.
You can't judge the Almighty, Crawley. God's plans are...
Are you going to say ineffable?
People aren't sacred. The plan is. And it's scary to think that most religions are framed this way. Aziraphale and Crowley care about humans. Heaven doesn't. Because when obedience replaces empathy, suffering becomes acceptable collateral. Now, take that same logic and scale it to the extreme. In Warhammer 40k, the Imperium of Man claims to protect humanity at all costs. And to be fair, the threats are real. Chaos, demons, extinction-level enemies. But look at the price. Citizens are disposable. Dissent is punishable by death. Entire alien species are exterminated in the name of survival. This brings up a big question for anyone watching. If preserving humanity requires destroying everything that makes us human, then what exactly are we saving? This is the final form of obedience-based morality. Survival without a soul. So what do these stories have in common? They all show institutions that value order over compassion, rules over people, obedience over conscience. And that's why they resonate. Because we live under systems that work the same way. When disaster strikes, aid doesn't come from empathy. It comes from committees, protocols, and delays. Human urgency collides with institutional caution. Leaders speak of values, but often protect power first. Because power doesn't just corrupt, it incentivizes self-preservation. We're taught from a young age to obey, to be good citizens, to trust authority.
Let's take extra care to follow the instructions or you'll be put to sleep.
But what if those rules weren't built primarily to protect us, but to maintain control? When I say the good guys, I really mean our leaders, whether it's the government, the police, or any religious leaders. I grew up believing they existed to protect us. Now, I realize they often function as bodyguards for power. Whenever people demand equality, they are met with extreme adversity by the very institutions meant to serve them. And suddenly, the pattern clicks. The Jedi were the exception. They were the blueprint. Here's where the distinction matters. Order isn't inherently bad, but order is not morality. And obedience is not goodness. Real morality requires choice, empathy, responsibility. If we follow harmful systems simply because they are lawful or traditional, we become participants, not victims.
Yes, my lord.
And the most dangerous thing a good guy can do is to stop asking questions. So I want to leave you with this. I challenge you. Ask yourself, are we willing to question the beliefs we inherited? Or will we defend systems simply because they're familiar? Because history shows us this over and over. The greatest harm is rarely done by villains. It is done by people who were just following the rules.
I respectfully protest our arrest. We were only following orders, nothing more.
This has been your first dose of DMT. Take responsibly. Or should I say, take responsibility. Till next time.